call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. First, I need a motion for adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on May 27th, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Draycott and seconded by Councillor Knox. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have two delegations this evening to present to council. Our first delegation is Madison Connolly from the Fort La Prairie Museum. And Madison, I'll ask you to take the podium, please.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, the color's a little off, but that's fine. Perfect, thanks. I do have some paper copies of this if anyone would prefer paper over your laptops. Everyone's okay? Yep. Thank you. Perfect. I do recognize a lot of faces in front of me, but for those that I have not had the pleasure to meet, I'm Madison Connolly. I'm the Executive Director of the Fort La Prairie Museum. I love my job, and I'm very thrilled to be here today to officially present our strategic plan for 2019 to 2024. You were the first public eyes to see this, so we're very thrilled. As one of our major stakeholders, the city is a really important entity for us, and I found it was really, really critical for you to see this and for you to know what we're working on and how the museum is planning to grow for the future. So I know I only have a few minutes, so I won't dive too deep into the details, but this document will be public and will be on our website no later than tomorrow morning, so everyone is welcome to nitpick it if you like. Oh. A little bit finicky. That'll work. Okay, so I'll get into how we developed the strategic plan. As you may know, strategic plans are crucial for organizations to look inward, to be on the same page, staff, volunteers, and board members to all know what we are working towards, a common goal, and make sure that we're keep returning and make sure that we're actually obtaining those goals appropriately and in a right timely fashion. So before we even put pen to paper, we looked at our community and brought in correspondence from events, school tours, programs, and really looked at what people wanted from the museum. And that led us to developing our SWOT analysis. I met one-on-one with our board members to determine what our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were for the Fort La Prairie Museum and how we could grow from these. And finally, with extensive board meetings, we looked at all of our contributions and looked at ideas to how to establish the role of the Fort La Prairie Museum and our objectives moving forward. One of our board meetings was also facilitated by Nettie Newdorf, who is trained for economic development for organizations. And finally, we came up with the draft and the final publication that you see in front of you. Part of developing the strategic plan was developing a new mission, vision, and mandate for the organization. In the past, these three core entities of the museum weren't really consistent, and so it was important for us to really hone in on what we were and why we were here. So I won't read them because it does get long-winded, but I will move forward. Vision and our new mandate. Extending from this, we recognized that we were built on four primary pillars: education, heritage preservation, and tourism, and community. For education, we know that we need to focus on providing learning opportunities and experience for our visitors, regardless of background. And for heritage preservation, we know that we need to create concrete policies and procedures for preserving artifacts and buildings, which we have done this year. Tourism, we know we need to provide accurate, welcoming information and be a leader in marketing in our community. And then community. We need to encourage volunteer opportunities, being ambassadors at community events, and partnering with other organizations. And that leads us, this is a little hard, to our 6 primary goals that, after all this work, we finally established. So we know we need to increase annual visitation, strengthen community investment, ensure long-term heritage conservation and preservation, exist as a financially sustainable institution, be a center for interactive education, and be a regional leader in tourism and economic development. We not only believe, we know that these goals are obtainable by 2024. And we appreciate your help and your support in making sure that we do accomplish all these. If you do want to look at how we aim to achieve all these goals, there are little sub-points underneath all of these in the official document. And we will be looking back on this biannually as a board, making sure that we are hitting the points that we need to in order to be as good as we can be. So finally, very short and sweet. Thank you for helping us preserve our prairie heritage. I guess I have a few minutes if anyone has any questions.
Are there questions from council for Madison? Councillor Knox?
Thank you, Madison. I think you've done a great job at the Fort Lorraine Museum in the last couple of years. And the one thing that I've really noticed is the increased collaboration with other organizations that have gone on. Just this year, during the bike weekend, the bun ride. It's called the bun ride. The cinnamon. You rode your bike there.
Week, yeah.
I thought it was thinking outside the box and just bringing 2 great organizations together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. No questions. Just, of course, a comment. I've been, excuse me, fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with you in a couple of events and be involved in the museum in a small way. And I know that the volunteers and so on that I met throughout those times have been very dedicated. The passion that you've shown so far in the events and so on, I think is showing through. And what I encourage you to do is to certainly maybe come back to council in 6 months and give us an update as to where you are on some of these markers. And I know we're very interested in hearing that. But I'd like to echo Councillor Knox's comments, and I congratulate you very well for a job well done up to this point.
Thank you very much.
Any further comments from council? Councillor Draycott?
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Connolly since she came to Portage la Prairie, and she has just dove right into Fort Lorraine Museum and making it even more than what it was to us before, and she's done a great job. This particular piece, document that we're looking at, the strat plan, she's spent so much time on this, and the board did have a lot of communication for her, but many of the things that you see right here are from the mind of Ms. Connolly, and she is very passionate about what she does in Portage, and she's doing very well at the things that the board has outlined for her that we would like her to focus on. And so thank you very much for your hard work, and I'm so excited for the years to come and all of the goals that the museum has put out for ourselves. And with you at the helm, I think that those will be a completely obtainable. So congratulations.
Ooh, thank you. Okay. I won't take any more.
Any more comments? Well, Madison, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your evening to come out and present to council. And I want to thank you and your board for all the hard work that's being done. And I've heard very similar comments from various groups in the community, the same as Councillor Knox mentioned about collaboration and the cooperation. And that's really noticed in the community and much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, our second delegation this evening is Ashley LaPearl, and she's going to present on the Peaceful March, and she's probably going to correct the pronunciation of her name.
Hello. Good evening, council members. My name is Ashley LaPearl, and I am here tonight to talk to you a little bit about a peaceful march that I have started organizing here in town to raise awareness to the drug crisis that is going on here and the violence that is taking place because of it. Not only here, but also in the communities and the reservations that are around us. The march will take place on Saturday, June the 29th at 1 p.m. We'll begin our march at Island Park and at the police station. I came to speak to you guys tonight to make it clear that this is not intended to be a protest against the government or the local RCMP in any sort of way. It is a peaceful coming together as an entire community. I think it's really important that, you know, we stand together and we show these dealers that are bringing these drugs into our streets that they are no longer welcome here anymore. You don't have to look very far for evidence that there's a drug problem here. You can take a walk through one of our parks and you're likely to find needles littering the ground where our children are playing. Or you can read about them on our local website, where you'll find a number of reports that prove that crime in Portage la Prairie has definitely increased in the last 2 years. There's reports of break-and-enters, robberies, domestic violence, assaults, stabbings, shootings, and deaths. This movement is especially important to me because my own sister is struggling with this addiction as well. I have personally seen friends and family taken over by this drug, and I know the damage that they can cause, not only on the person, but on the community and the families that are involved. Education, treatment, and prevention are definitely important in this kind of a situation. If you bear with me, I will share a few facts about methamphetamine. It affects the central nervous system of the brain, and it releases a flood of dopamine at much higher levels than what is naturally possible, which is why the drug is so addictive. It gives users an energetic, euphoric high, which the brain wants to maintain. This is what causes cravings and withdrawal symptoms in users. It's important to note that withdrawal symptoms can be intense and pose serious risk to the user's health. Within 24 hours of a user's last dose, they are likely to experience overwhelming depression, paranoia, psychosis, hallucinations, anxiety, and insomnia. And it's symptoms like these that are likely to cause violence like what we are seeing here in Portage la Prairie and the reserves and communities around us. We need to bring education to our entire community, not only to bring public awareness to this issue, but to end the stigma that users are facing. On keeping with the importance of education, we feel that it is equally important to prepare our first responders and healthcare workers who are on the front lines dealing with this crisis every day. While looking to educate myself, I came across a few prevention ideas that some communities have found effective, and one being community policing. Community policing is a holistic approach that introduces officers into neighborhoods that are most affected by crime and drug abuse. It puts community and public trust over traditional crime control methods and creates a more proactive and positive relationship between the public and the police. Treatment needs to be a major focus here in Portage, and we feel that we need to look at bringing our own rehab and detox facility into our town. While watching my own sister struggle with addiction, I learned that there's only a short window of time that you need to act upon when an addict decides to get clean. They can't wait months for treatment because the chances of relapsing in this time are incredibly high. The addicts need to know that there are people that care about them and where and how to get help. The community needs to know what to do when they find somebody that is overdosing and how they can get help for the people that they love that might be struggling. In conclusion, members of council, we have no doubt that our city council and our police are doing all that they can, but we feel that it is very important that our whole community comes together and takes a stand against what is happening, and we would like to invite you to come out and march alongside us. Thank you. That is all I have.
Well, thank you for presenting. I'm going to open up for questions from council or comments. Councillor Knox.
Ashley, it's nice to meet you in person, finally. First of all, I would like to say that I am very pleased with the message that you've been putting out there on social media and other things, that this is a peaceful event, and that it is about supporting what's happening in our community when it comes to crime prevention. So thank you for that. I'm a big believer in it takes a whole community.
It really
So thank you for that message too. And I do wish you well on June 29th.
Thank you.
I think it's also important that there is a lot of things happening. And can I ask Mrs. Espy to talk about the Wednesday night event, which I know you're aware of too?
So on Wednesday, June 12th, PCRC is working closely with Cornell and so we are having a community engagement session on public safety where we're bringing out some members of the Winnipeg Bear Clan and the Brandon Bear Clan. So James Favel, the executive director from Winnipeg, is coming out to give a presentation on how they got started. And then we've got several reps from the Women's Council in Brandon, which is the governing body of their Bear Clan, coming out to talk about what it means to establish a Women's Council, which would lead this initiative. So it's an information session that we hope everyone comes to. It's important to know that this would be an Indigenous-led initiative, but that requires support from the whole community. So we're just gauging interest at this time, but PCRC has committed $5,000 to help get this initiative off the ground if that is something that the community chooses to take on. So we really need a good turnout on Wednesday night. It will have an Indigenous focus, so we will open with some drummers from Dakota Teepee. There will be an opening prayer. You can smudge when you come in. We really want to set a positive tone for the night, but it certainly is a place where people can come and talk about some of their concerns that they have with safety in our community. So we hope it's a really positive experience, but it's going to take the community to get this initiative off the ground. We're just supporting it, not leading it.
And just lastly, I'm sorry to hear about your sister, and I hope that she does get the help she needs when she's ready. So,
Thanks.
Other questions or comments from council? I just had a couple of comments, Ashley. A lot of what you said this evening I've heard from our men and women in the RCMP here in Portage. And 3 times a year I meet with the other 9 mayors in Manitoba. And a lot of what you said could be them describing their communities. This is something that Portage is not alone in this. Some communities are a little worse off, some a little better off. But this is a very common theme right now. And appreciate you taking time out and all the work you've done on organizing this. And hope to see you Wednesday night and see you later on in June. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got a number of public hearings this evening. We're going to open the public hearing for variation order PC 3319. This is for Bridge Road Land Management Limited in the city of Portage la Prairie on the corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest. And this is City Planning and Economic Development. Councillor Meyer? Sorry.
Yeah. The opening.
Was there anyone here to speak to this? Variation order PC 3319. Bridge Road Land Management. Okay, need a motion to close the hearing?
Well, be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation order PC 3319, Bridge Road Land Management Limited, City of Portage la Prairie, corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, council, in front of you, you're going to see a request for variation. The issue, of course, we have at hand right now is to vary the number of required parking stalls from 24 stalls to be reduced to 16 stalls. Sorry, this is the request from Bridge Road Land Management Limited. So the background, as we know, is that Bridge Road Land Management Limited is applying for a variation in order to vary the number of required parking stalls from 24 to 16. Part of their rationale is the request because it is an assisted living facility that it will not have the same traffic congestion that it might have if it was in a normal apartment. So the application had been circulated to various city departments. There was some concern expressed over the reduction in parking stalls, and I think the biggest part is if this was consistent with similar projects that we've approved throughout the town. Concern was also expressed over the requirement of only 2 accessible parking stalls. But the applicant's long-term plan is to build more of these same units on this property. So right now, there's 16 suites in this building. As per the City of Portage la Prairie zoning bylaw, they require 1.5 parking stalls per suite, 10% of which are supposed to be designed for visitor parking. As per the applicant's initial application, they feel that many or most of the residents in the building will not require a vehicle. Thus, they request to have the parking stalls reduced. There was some concerns, although none lodged from any public notices, about parking that could maybe happen on the 18th Street as a result, because 18th Street, of course, is an arterial road. Sorry, is my microphone on? I just can't hear it myself. So just some of the past history, just so we're aware of what we've done in the past. The Canadian Mental Health Association did build 2 buildings on the corner of 1st Street Northwest and Fisher Avenue. This building was constructed in 2011, and council did approve a variation to reduce the required parking stalls from 35 down to 19. In addition, in 2013, 8-unit building was constructed, and council approved a variation to reduce the required parking stalls down from 12 to 0 in that case. There may be another possible one coming up. The Portage Assisted Living hasn't officially applied for any variances or permits, but they also have indicated they will be asking for a parking stall reduction because the clientele, of course, that could be in the assisted living facility. So you'll see there's a sketch that shows the proposed development, and then there's also a sketch of the future development, but we're dealing with only the proposed development at this time. And as I mentioned earlier, public notices have been sent to all property owners within 100-meter radius. And just so that you're aware, the City of Portage la Prairie zoning bylaw and the Manitoba Building Code are silent on the issue of number of accessible parking stalls required. So it's really left up to the individual owner desire to determine the required accessible stalls based on the clientele. So with that said, I'll make the recommendation and so move that the Council of City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Bridge Road Land Management Limited to vary the number of required parking stalls from 24 stalls to be reduced to 16 stalls at the property known as corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest, which is legally described as Lot 22, Block 5, Plan 1810, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one question, and I guess it's just in regards to, we know that it's on a C3 Avenue commercial zone, and the building is originally for a assisted living facility. If we do grant this application or variation, do they have the opportunity to change that at any time in the future from C3? I guess the question I'm asking, can they change the function of the building at some point in time that may require more parking stalls later on? Yeah, sorry, I apologize. I direct that through the mayor to
Mr. Brooks.
to Mr. Brooks. Sorry,
Mr. Brooks, could you answer the question that came through me, please?
I'm so sorry.
I guess if you're asking, could they ever change it to another zone? Is that the question?
Yes.
They could apply if they wanted to rezone that to another application. Yes, they could. They could zone it to, if it's going to be used for this, they could apply for it to be rezoned to an R3 if they so. There's a process to go through for that as well, but they could if they wanted to. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from council? Councillor Draycott?
Thank you, Worship. I guess I would say I have some concerns. I realize that the clientele, they're not expecting to have as many vehicles in the establishment. However, there is going to be staff that are expected to go to that establishment daily. And in my experience, some of my neighbors are elderly and require some assistance with their day-to-day life, and they don't have less traffic than my family does. They have maybe even more traffic because they have family coming to visit. They have people coming in, like I said, to work for the day. And if we get this wrong and we decrease the number of parking stalls that there are available to this facility, there is nothing anywhere near there where they can park and walk to in that direct area without having a substantial walk. Am I incorrect in that?
That was a question I had. The concerns raised, some of them centered around parking. So, and Mr. Braid, maybe this question is for you. So parking wouldn't be allowed on Park Drive or 18th Street. Is that, we're reading that correct?
I don't think parking has been designated on 18th Street or Park Drive. We are looking at updating the traffic bylaw, and we'll be considering that as a change to the traffic bylaw. So not permitting parking on Park Drive and 18th Street.
Okay. So it sounds like the answer would be there's no parking except on site. It's not a residential area. Other questions or comments on the motion? Okay, the question is called. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? And that's defeated. Open the public hearing for variation order PC 36-19. This is Winnipeg Habitat for Humanity at 68 9th Street Northeast. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
You just answer questions if you have any.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Fraze. Were there any questions for Mr. Fraze from council? No? Okay. Need a motion to close the hearing?
Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation order PC 3619, the Winnipeg Habitat for Humanity, Inc., 68 9th Street Northeast, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, and council, in front of you, you'll have a request for variation as well from Winnipeg Habitat for Humanity, Inc. They are applying for a variation order to vary the front yard requirement from 7.5 meters to be reduced down to 6 meters. Rationale is the applicant would like the house to line up with existing houses on the street. Currently, the building is in an R1 residential single-family zone. A site visit of the area reveals that 9 other houses on the east side of this block, all of them are 6 meters or less from the front line of the property. Of the 12 houses on the west side of the block, 8 of them are 6 meters or less, and the remaining 4 are 7 to 7.5 meters to the front property line. The application has been circulated to all various departments. There's been no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners with a 100-meter radius, and there's been no objections filed. You look at the sketch in front of you. With that said, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Winnipeg Habitat for Humanity, Inc., to vary the front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 6 meters at the property known as 68 9th Street Northeast, which is legally described as Lot 24, Block 2, Plan 32 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Next public hearing is we'll open the public hearing for boring bylaw 19-8695, and this is for first reading. And this Hearing, as was advertised, is for questions, or if anybody wants to raise an objection, that's welcome. And the hearing is on the boring bylaw. It's not on the causeway or what the money's being used for. It's for the boring bylaw. So is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Okay, last call. Anyone here to speak to the public hearing for boring bylaw number 19-8695? And anybody could speak for or against the bylaw. Okay, I need a motion to close the hearing.
Be it resolved, and I so move that bylaw 19-8695, being a bylaw for borrowing, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So, as the mayor alluded to, we plan on borrowing a little bit of money for our causeway. As everybody knows, the planning and replacement of our 100-year-old Island Park Bridge has been going on for many years, and we know that we've already seen some work being done on the expansion of the existing causeway for preparations for removal of our existing bridge. So we know that things are underway. That total cost is about $8.2 million, and we're also aligning another cost in the amount of $950,000 for engineering and contingency. So how are we paying for all of this? We currently have almost $6 million in the federal tax reserves, and the balance coming from $3.3 million in debt financing 2020. So it's important to note that we are not planning on incurring any of this debt until 2020, and that obviously means that our construction schedule has got to be maintained. And so we do receive annual gas tax contributions, and those payments will be used to make the debt payments on the $3.3 million that's borrowed. So I think, and I've said from the very start, that no increase in property taxes will be needed for this project. So that's always been a concern, and I continue to say that message. This is being funded through monies that's already been saved and monies that we will be receiving in order to pay for debt that we'll be incurring. So this is normal, but the Manitoba Government Finance Department has requested the city complete the process needed for borrowing funds, and that's what we're doing, even though those funds will not be planning on being dispersed till 2020. And again, as the mayor had alluded to, the Crescent Lake Causeway plan has already been approved, and this process requires a public hearing specifically just for the debt. And as we know, notices were placed on the 16th and the 30th of May in the local newspaper as well as on our website. So it is a recommendation of your committee, and I so move that bylaw 19-8695, being a bylaw of the City of Portage la Prairie, to authorize the borrowing of up to $3.3 million for the completion of the Island Park Causeway project, be given first reading.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Knox. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Going to move right into committee. First up is Finance, Legislative and Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. Your committee has nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee have nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Services Committee. Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Worship. Nothing for Community Services Committee this evening.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee. Councillor Wall.
Waterworks Committee has nothing this evening, Your Worship.
And Transportation Committee, Councillor Meyer for Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the Transportation Committee has nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. And Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing to report from Public Safety tonight.
Thank you. We have some deferred business. This is the public hearing for variation order PC 2819 for Rocari Developments. Okay, and my understanding is this application has been withdrawn. Okay. Moving into new business, BDO Center Building Reserve, bylaw 19-8697. This is for first reading.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the new reserve and bylaw that I'm proposing this evening is to deal with the BDO Center for the Community's reserve funds. And so in 2019, the City of Portage la Prairie amended its community grant funding to this group who operates the BDO Center. And that's also referred to as the BDO Center for the Community, or as we sometimes call it, the old Portage Centennial Arena. And so we wanted to be proactive and start putting money aside for the larger expenditures that could be coming our way with regards to that facility. So in 2019, we will be setting aside $10,000. And again, as I mentioned, it's just to prepare for those larger building repairs. I think the important thing to note is it is a very dedicated group of volunteers over at that center who fundraise extensively. They write grants to get funds, and there's been a tremendous amount of improvements that have gone over there, and they deserve all the credit. We're doing our job to shore up any shortfalls that might come, and this is the first step in doing that. The city's facilities supervisor will work with the club management on the use of this reserve, so we'll work in tandem in terms of where the money could be used for improvements. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the BDO Center Building Reserve Fund by giving bylaw 19-8697 first reading.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We have no old business this evening, so council is going to adjourn at 6:36 p.m. We're going to move right into committee, and committee is open to the public and it's open to the media. Okay, first up is Finance Legislative Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. There's two items for council's consideration in the committee report. One, which I'm not going to go into any detail because we just did the first reading on that building reserve, so we'll be looking for second and third. But the other one is the local vehicle for hire. Now, that particular bylaw was given first reading some time ago. It was brought back to council for second and third reading. I unfortunately was not in attendance at that meeting, but I do understand that it was at the request of council that second and third reading be delayed, and that there was an effort going to be put forth. I think Councillor Meyer was going to reach out to local cab companies. I believe that is the occurrence, and so I bring this forth in the next meeting under the premise that that information has been obtained, and if that's different than what I'm thinking, then I guess now is the time to have that conversation.
I can certainly. No, go ahead.
As the outside, my understanding was that they would work together to do some sort of survey with those groups again, with asking the different questions that Councillor Meyer had been contacted about. Not necessarily it was him directly doing it.
I can speak to that as well, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Buds and Councillor Knox. I did request for a deference, and again, to make without repeating myself from the last one, thought that maybe there was more discussion that we needed with the taxi cab drivers in relation to the bylaw. So I had reached out to council, and of course we had set a deference to June the 24th, so that's why it shows up on committee meeting tonight. I have been in touch with our administration. We are going to set up a face-to-face meeting with the taxi drivers in the city of Portage la Prairie just to have some discussion on it.
Okay, but are we bringing forth the existing second and third reading on committee report now will be coming to council, or should, from my committee's perspective, should we be waiting for some newer information? I guess that could go through to Mr. Pito and administration.
Through your worship to Councillor Buds, in terms of the report going to committee, right now it's on committee for consideration and more information. Councillor Meyer has asked administration to work with him to schedule a meeting to get additional feedback. That bylaw may change based on that feedback, or there may be suggested amendments to that bylaw from that feedback. It's not unusual to have changes from a committee to council agenda. And so we're continuing with the assumption it'll move forward, and should there be changes, that will be noted in the report, or if there's substantial changes, it could stay on committee for the following meeting.
Thank you. And that concludes my committee's report, unless there's questions.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Buds. Councillor Meyer, City Planning and Economic Development.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to bring up 2 points, if I may. First thing I'd like to bring up was just, I guess, with the summer above us and or upon us, and now that we've got rain, and there's certainly a lot of people have put a lot of work, a lot of effort into maintaining the beauty of the yards and the conditions and surroundings, and we certainly from council encourage that as much as we can. Unfortunately, there are also some situations where maybe people feel that there are some unsightly yards, and I just want to recognize that I've had a number of phone calls that reach out in regards to maybe unkempt yards, untidy yards, and so on that may violate the bylaw. So I just thought it might be appropriate, Your Mayor, that we at least bring it up to the forefront again and let people be aware that if there is an issue and you do see a yard that you feel is unsightly, first of all, there is a city bylaw that does refer to the specifics of what I guess an untidy yard or really is. So if there's somebody that feels that there's one of those situations, they can call bylaw enforcement themselves. But I would like to turn it over, if I may, Your Worship, just to our Fire Chief Carpenter there, and maybe you can explain a little bit more of what the process is. Thanks.
Yeah, so in reference to, again, messy yards, long grass, you can call 239-8326 is the number that goes directly to bylaw enforcement. And they, again, will in turn get a hold of the homeowner or the tenant involved. They give them a few days to get it corrected, and if it is not corrected, then we will cut the grass for them and bill it accordingly, and that goes along with anything from unsightly property with buildings or fences. Again, we try to work with people, but we have to be reasonable with our requests and do a lot, depending on the severity of it, we do allow some time frame, but recognizing that the end result has to be there. So it is a timed event, and we try to make sure it is followed through and corrected.
Good, thank you very much. And of course, you can also go on to the service request on the city's app, I do believe, and you can lodge any kind of a complaint that you want at that point as well. So,
sorry, yeah, you're correct there.
Okay.
You can also email the request in as well. City bylaw. I forget the email. You should have given me that one.
bylaw@city/plap.com.
Thank you.
That's because she gave it to me and I was supposed to give it to you, I guess. No. Yeah, so again, it's just that time of the year. Of course, in the middle of wintertime, everybody's yard looks the same, but certainly if you do feel that there's an issue, we do ask you to follow the city bylaws as it goes forward. Second item, and if council can just bear with me for just a minute, I just want to take a moment to recognize our EDO, Mr. Vern May. Vern has, of course, if you read in the paper, has a great opportunity in front of him and will be leaving us in a couple of 3 weeks and be taking on a role in a similar position, from my understanding, in British Columbia. So I wanted to take this opportunity just to recognize the work that Vern's done over the last couple of years that he's been with us. We know we certainly will miss him, and we won't get into his talents and his skill sets. That's really helped us strongly get to where we are, but we certainly do appreciate everything that he's done and trust that he'll have a really good trip and a really good time out there. Second thing I'd like to just address is the trophy that's sitting in front of him. Because I know that if council can bear with me real quick, I know we brought it here for a specific reason. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it looks pretty cool. So, Mr. May, if I can turn it over to you for 30 seconds, if you can just tell us quickly what it's about.
I just promised the executive director of the United Way that I would be bringing the trophy to council as the first ultimate pieing champion to ever sit at this table.
Tell you, Portage has many firsts in the past, Your Worship. I got to admit that's probably the first that I've seen in that. But I think we should give Mr. May a hand for that. What do you think?
He raised $1,300 for that organization on his own.
That's awesome.
You betcha. Once again, congratulations, Vern. Trophy looks pretty cool. And Your Worship, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Draycott, Community Services, please.
Thank you, Worship. I would add that the Central Plains United Way pie fundraiser, the pie was delicious. If you weren't the very top of your class, the pie was still delicious. So thank you for that. I don't have anything on the docket, but I was wondering if our youth counselor would give us a brief update. It is the last month of school. Is there anything going on this month besides the usual end of school year things?
So right now it's a really busy month going on with exams and then grad and prom and everything. So the two things that I have lined up now are the survey that we are planning, the Youth Crime Initiative, which I was able to talk to Councillor Knox and the RCMP liaison in our school about. And right now we're in the middle of the process of making our questions. And once that is made, then we'll send it to the proper authorities and get it into process. And the other thing is that we are going to be hosting the senior musical jamboree. The date has not been finalized yet, so we're working on that. But yeah, that's the next up event. So
perfect, excellent. And of course, under community services, PCRC is also there, and always lots of events happening. It is a very busy office right now. Is there anything that you would like to share with us besides what you've already shared this evening, Mrs. Espy?
Good evening again. I think I forgot to mention that Wednesday's event is at the Herman Pryor Center, and doors open at 6:30, and we really hope that you are all able to attend. Our AGM is on June 18th. You're testing my memory. And that is at 5 p.m. at the Herman Pryor Center, and that's really exciting because, I mean, we've doubled in size in the last year, and we have a lot going on. And then on June 20th, our Skills Up class is graduating. We started that program with 12 participants, and 12 participants are graduating, which is absolutely unheard of for programs like these. So we were so excited. I know you all got invitations, so we hope to see you there too. And yeah, we're just really excited to celebrate all of these things happening. So thanks.
And I will end that off to say that PCRC does a great job on social media and their website, so you can find all the dates and all the programs that they have going on, which are substantial, online as well. And other than that, I would say I have nothing else this evening for community services, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. And Councillor Wall, Waterworks Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. And Councillor Meyer for Councillor Espy, anything for transportation?
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing else as well.
Thank you. Councillor Knox, Public Safety Committee.
A couple of things. I would absolutely reiterate that I would encourage all of council to attend on Wednesday night to hear firsthand from the Bear Clan what they do in other communities as they are growing across our province, and then figure out if this is a fit for our community, and hopefully see enough people out there and our Indigenous community stepping up to bring this here to help our citizens. And then I would like to give a shout out to our fire department. They had a very busy few days. So I congratulate them on all their hard work and their extra hours, and happy to know that everybody is safe and sound and continuing on doing what they do. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Councillor Knox. Just before we close, I realize that Mr. May will probably have one more meeting with us, but just wanted to say how much we've enjoyed working with you, and to come through the day and wrestle those deals in the door for us. Really appreciate that. And
Oh, I just got the pun.
sorry, what?
What?
Anyway, as I was saying, all the best to you and your family in Abbotsford, and we're going to miss you, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you in the future, and thank you very much for all your hard work on behalf of this community and the RM over the last couple of years. Much appreciated. And with that, committee is adjourned at 6:49 p.m. You guys are slow. He was